Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil, a podcast on psychic protection, spiritual hygiene, and navigating the ebbs and flows of the healing journey as you learn to master both your sovereign and shadow selves. My name is Lauren on Earth, your host, and take 3. I tried to record this I did record the episode on Friday. It's now Monday. The episode should have come out this morning. And I go to edit yesterday, and my video was just processing. It would go from 0% to 1% and then back to 0%. Never happened to me before. According to Riverside, which is a software that I use, this happens if you exit out of the tab immediately and it doesn't allow the video to finish uploading. I know I kept the tab open because I went back to it in true Gemini fashion, have a million tabs open, but I know where everything is. And so I probably did go to another tab as soon as I was done recording or not long after, but I definitely didn't close it. So I feel like someone does not want this information coming out, obviously. So we got to re-record. And I went to re-record this morning. I spilled water um, all over my desk, got on my laptop. Then I'm recording, and now Riverside can't pick up my camera. And then I go to restart, and then I can't turn on my computer. So I was like, okay, this is just not going to happen this week, and that's fine. Again, non-reaction, kind of sucks if I need a new computer, but what am I going to do? And so that was a thing. I prayed for a miracle and my computer turned back on. And also, in regard to re-recording, I wasn't even mad at all because obviously in these heavier topics, they need to be talked about. But I do really like to make sure that I am coming from a place of softness and grace, and I'm in my body. And when I'm talking about these things, I'm not adding more fear, more fuel to the fire. And I kind of felt like on Friday, it was the end of the week. It was one of my last tasks of the week. And I was kind of running on fumes. So I think it was a great episode, but I do feel I was a little disconnected from my body, which maybe you would have been able to feel through the episode. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just a little bit more hypercritical of myself. But either way, I'm like, totally fine. I'll re-record. I feel a lot better today after a weekend of rest and repair and a little bit of a break. So that was fine with me. It actually worked out in my favor. And it's always just a nice reminder, right, of anyone who's going through trying to get out of these psychic attacks or, find their way out of the darkness, whatever it may be. Like, there are going to be times where there are attempts to derail us, but there's always a positive and always a perspective that we can look at that is not feeding into and giving them what they want, which is for us to be frustrated and annoyed and mad. So immediately it was just like, great, this second recording is probably going to be even better than the first, and I'm feeling a lot better, so it's meant to be. Thanks, I guess. And even today, when the whole computer thing happened, and I'm like, okay, who is this? Is this the vampire collective consciousness that is trying to interfere? I've also been dealing with a practitioner who I have a couple of clients that were under her, taking her courses, kind of in her community. It all kind of started to come out at once. And I've been feeling her lately because I know she knows I know. And I'm like, is it her? Because the second time around, I was like, maybe I should talk about this girl because she's definitely a harming her community like badly. Like even one of my clients, um, there were some vicious attacks and entities sent their way. And so I'm like, I've been wanting to just honestly scream it from the rooftops and like make sure everyone knows to stay away from this person. But obviously, you guys know that's not how I operate. And instead, just try to teach discernment for you guys to figure this stuff out yourself, which is exactly what happened with the clients, right? Like they figured it out. And I am supporting them getting out of this and minimizing the attacks as much as possible and figuring out why there's this connection in the first place and so on. So last week, this was last Wednesday, I had early morning sessions. I was feeling great. And then I go outside, I take my dog for a walk, and all of a sudden, like, things are starting to feel a little weird. There was this chain of events of like, I got a ticket and then blah, blah, blah. So then one of my clients messages me about her saying she wants to, once all of this came out, we have not done a session yet. She's been navigating it on her own. I've been there as a support, because that happens, right, where it's like this energy is moving, we know we can do it. And she was just saying like, I think there are blind spots and I think it's time for a session. And then some time passes, maybe like 45 minutes. And I'm like, this weird energy that I'm feeling all day is this girl. And so I know that I need to drop in and do some clearing. So later that night, I drop in and I'm like, okay, I thought everything was on lock. How and why am I feeling the energy of this person? Like, she should not have access into any part of me at all. What's going on? Let me take a look at the shielding, the container. And basically, what I saw was, yes, I am protected. The shielding does go out a lot farther than my own personal auric field. But at the very edge of kind of where my protection starts and vast space begins, like, I'm not really sure, but it's nowhere near my physical body. It's nowhere near me, but on like the outskirts of my container. This girl's energy was kind of like a flying squirrel and like kind of like a bat, like glued to the walls of my container. And so I was feeling like her presence, like this shadow presence of her kind of like draped over this container. And so I pulled her right up off and flicked her away and did some more clearing and and immediately felt better. I was like, wow. So never a dull moment over here, always kind of needing to keep a guard up when doing this work. I was definitely relieved to see that it was her like draped over my container, kind of like creating this shadow over me, not actually that she got in any way. But I definitely know the feeling of not being so protected and that, this happening where they did impede on your sovereignty. And that's what this whole episode is about today, of this vampire consciousness, a type of underworld entity that siphons and takes your life force energy. And they're very skilled at it. They're very good at it. And I just wanted to share the definitions that have been laid out for me with this consciousness group, kind of who they are, where they come from, and then my own personal experiences with them as well. And so this episode, I timed it with Halloween, with Samhain, which is the pagan holiday that Halloween was birthed from, based off of, that marks the transition from harvest season to winter. It was and still is a time for divination, for reflection, for connecting to the spiritual realm, because the boundary, the veil between the physical and the spiritual world is most fluid or more fluid during this time. So I feel like we're kind of already in the shadow period here. It's already happening. I had a conversation with a client this morning where she was like, you know, she does really similar work to me. And she was just like, yeah, so many more entity attachments than normal. I'm like, yeah, because one, the veil is thinner. They're able to move between a lot more easily. And also, we're able to now see things that we weren't able to before. So the first is Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, right? A time to connect with and honor our ancestors. And then Halloween being the 31st. But somehow in this twisted society that we live in, it became about feeding children candy that have red dye and carcinogens and processed sugars and all of that fun stuff. Just more attempts to take us even farther from the natural rhythms of our planet, hiding the truth of these holidays to separate us from the magic. And, again, who's going to tell the diehard Christians that who believe that magic is evil, that their entire belief system is based off magic? I don't know. So it's a Celtic holiday, and I'm just going to share two goddesses that I connect with most during this time. There are a lot more, it's the darker feminine, like Hecate and Persephone. I personally don't fully understand them just yet and haven't really been drawn to connect with them, but I do connect with the Morrigan and Caradwyn. And again, it's not to say that Persephone and Hecate are not light. I can't say that right now. It's kind of like Lilith, right? Where Lilith has been so misunderstood. But in reality, I don't think Lilith is dark at all. It's very possible it's the same for them. For me, we'll get there eventually, I'm sure. The Morrigan, it's a group of sisters of war, of death, of fate and transformation. They're closely linked to death and the battlefield. So the myths are that men used to work with her to sway the outcome of battles to their favor. But she also represents rebirth and shifting cycles of life, and is seen as a guardian of the dead, and is often invoked during this time for protection and guidance. And then you have Caradwyn. She's a goddess of wisdom, transformation, and rebirth as well. She has her cauldron, which is also a symbol of the Holy Grail. And there's a connection there as well. She is a goddess of wisdom, of inspiration, and I believe that she's called upon during this time because of her deep connection to magic and the cyclical nature of life. So during this time of year, yes, the veil is thin. Yes, there are more spirits that you might be able to feel and sense. Yes, some of them are benevolent, and some do have other intentions. And it's important to be aware of all of it. It's important to listen to your intuition at this time. You might be called to separate a little bit from society, kind of go within, kind of distance yourself from whatever is going on. That's okay. That has happened to me so many times, of just not being able to participate in Halloween or go out during this time of year because I was too sensitive. It will change. It will get better. You will overcome that. But yeah, it's important to just kind of listen. And if you do notice that maybe there are some energies at play that don't feel so good, If you don't have the tools to be able to work through this on your own, I will be hosting a group psychic surgery on the eve of Halloween. It's going to be a regular group psychic surgery, but with a focus on identification of vampiric energies, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So before we get into this, we'll take a moment to set an intention that we are safe to receive knowledge and information about our universe, our home, and we will do so without any attempted harm inflicted. The intention to receive this knowledge and understand this consciousness group from a completely sovereign place, that there will be no entanglement of energies between anyone listening to this and these consciousness groups that we speak of. We are simply here to learn through a higher power and understand this group through our perceived senses, but to not directly connect to them in any way, shape, or form. So if these energies are present within anyone listening and it is waking something up, please allow that message to be received with gentle ease and the highest good of all involved. Just making the message clear and protecting each person as they then navigate and work to release it. So once again, our higher selves, our souls, our teams, we're placing protection over everyone listening. We are not connecting to the beings of this realm. We are in a safe and protected space, learning about the many different consciousness groups that live alongside us. And we have every right to do that without opening ourselves up to harm. And that's the thing, like, we can't shy away from learning this information out of fear. We deserve to learn about all of the beings we share space with, especially those we share a little bit too close of a space with, who don't always respect our boundaries. Why are you so mysterious? Why are you hiding? There's got to be a reason for that. I just don't believe that we should be hiding from each other. The vampires, they are very mysterious and they definitely hide and they lurk in the shadows. And they are parasites, or a specific group of parasites, because someone can be a parasite and not a vampire. A parasite is just something that is feeding off of your energy, feeding off of you, taking from you, obviously not respecting boundaries, even if you allowed it. And I'm going to get to what I mean by that, or we were manipulated to allow it. So, vampires are a specific consciousness group that live and exist in the underworld. I have seen them in dimensions 1 through 4, but not past the fourth dimension. At that point, they transform into, another entity, something else. But this consciousness group, yeah, underworld into the third dimension, also kind of up into the fourth dimension as well. So they are entities, right? And all of these different underworld entities, they're all a manifestation of the same thing, which is the Antichrist. So humans can be vampires. They can also be non-human, or should I say vampires can be human, but they can also be non-human. I see them as a body of energy. They do sometimes take shape, but they're not like a human body or anything like that. It's a dark black mass. Sometimes I see extremities. Sometimes I see red eyes. But yeah, usually it's like a dark black mass, like an entity. If you've seen those before, and sometimes they can be kind of hard to decipher, like what, okay, it's clearly an entity, but what kind of entity, right? And I'll get to that in a moment as well. But humans can either be vampires, like their soul is vampiric, like they were either born of this energy, which doesn't happen often, but is possible, or or they sold their soul basically and were once light, but now identify with this consciousness group. Like this is who and what they are. And they are, for the most part, happy and content with that. And now maybe they were once something else, but now this is what they are and who they are. And that's an option, possibility. On the other hand, it could be that they have vampiric attachments and they are not a vampire at their core. They are, the only connection that they have to this consciousness group is that they have attached to their consciousness, to the body, to the psyche, whatever it is, wherever that attachment is. And now these entities are working through that person, kind of like a hijacking. So I really encourage you to just start thinking about the people in your life, or maybe as I'm talking, you see some faces or names will pop into your mind as I talk. There's your confirmation that, right, we're setting this intention now. If you're sensing them while I'm talking, if they pop into your mind, it's because they're embodying these qualities or they are one to some degree, and this is a message to you. The more the veil lifts, the more you'll notice most people do have some sort of parasitic energy or attachment. Um, Sometimes it's intentional, but a lot of the time, most of the time, it's unconscious. And what has happened is these people have given their power away, their autonomy, their sovereignty through wounds of self-worth or whatever it may be. And then these parasites, these vampires, sniff that out. They see an opportunity, they take advantage, and now they have access to their life force energy. And I also was one of those people that unknowingly or unintentionally gave part of myself to them in the past. And I'll tell that story as well. And this is the one thing about Tulum. There's a lot of vampires, a lot of parasites, and a lot of people who don't have good boundaries. It's a really great mix. Yeah, there's just a lot of people, a lot of dark magicians, a lot of Atlantean like priests that are back on these Atlantean lands that are still doing these distorted things and these rituals and these ceremonies. So a lot of people there who are feeding off energy, especially sexual energy as well, and it just like spills onto everyone. For me, I have compassion for it. It is unpleasant. I don't enjoy being around it. I don't really like going to those kinds of events. But sometimes I do wind up at them, and it just, kind of is what it is. And there's this one woman there who has almost an identical blueprint to my ex mentor. And I knew of her because she does a lot of charity events in Tulum, which makes it even harder for me to say this because all last season I'm sitting there like, am I reading her wrong? Because she's giving back to the community in more ways than I am, right? Doing all of these events, raising money. What am I doing? I'm taking my sessions, and of course I'm working with the land, and of course I'm giving back. But you always have to, this is what I do. I sit here and I really try to give the benefit of the doubt to these people. But ultimately I've never like been wrong. It's never me being like, oh, I see a darkness there, and then it wound up that I was wrong about it. It just sometimes takes me a minute to like accept it and to trust what I'm seeing. So this woman, I avoided her like the plague all season. There were these one day festival things that would go on, and she would always go to them, so I would never go to them. I did avoid her. I never went to any of her events. I never even went to like friends' events where I knew she was going to be because I was still healing from the mentor, and their blueprints are literally almost the same. They come from the same underworld, whatever. Don't want to go back to that and, have this like dark priestess energy. So I'm at this event. It's the end of my season, the end of the season. It's one of my last outings until I come back to Colorado. And the only reason I went was because my friend was putting it on and he was also leaving Tulum indefinitely. And I wanted to say goodbye. I got lost twice. I was over an hour late. It's like something did not want me going there, or something timed my timing perfectly, because I get there during opening ceremony. I sit down, and not even 5 minutes later, that woman who I've been avoiding all season, days before I'm about to leave Tulum, sits down right next to me. And in the opening ceremony of this event, everyone kind of goes around and shares something. And when it was her turn, she was opening a dark portal. And I'm just sitting there like, am I the only one that sees this? Like, what she's doing? She's opening the space and opening a dark portal. I'm closing it. We're sitting next to each other. I don't think anyone else, I don't know if anyone else in the room noticed it. I feel like there are people that see her, and then there are people that don't see her, for who she is. So anyway, I try to close the portal. I'm annoyed at this point because it's like, now I'm working and I'm tired and I don't even want to be here. And then the beautiful thing about this event is, like, everyone has an opportunity to share. So you want to share a poem, you want to get on the DJ booth, you want to, lead people through a meditation. Like, we're all here to kind of experience you, and we all kind of take a turn. Then there's another couple that is now taking the floor, and I know the intention was good, but they were singing Hare Krishna, and they were kind of encouraging like that sexual energy to open up and just kind of like let this be your playground. I honestly can't even remember. His speech was great. I didn't know it was going to take a turn like this. I actually kind of like looked up to them in a way, because I feel like they were tapped into something that I was still like severely blocked in my own like sexuality. And so, yeah, then the song starts and he's like, kind of just gives permission to just like let it out and be free and like connect to your intimacy and sexuality. And this woman starts doing these weird movements and like touching this man. And then they're in the middle and like they're moving around each other, and it's getting even weirder than it's already been. And she basically has an orgasm like right there in front of everyone. And that's when I walked out the freaking door and didn't look back. And I was just like, I gotta go back to Colorado. Um, but just kind of an example of someone who is like taking and feeding off this energy. The couples called it, they're like, someone had a kundalini awakening at our event. I'm like, that was not a kundalini awakening, but whatever you need to tell yourself to justify it. Because I was having a conversation with a friend like months later. I didn't know she was there, and I was like, I don't really feel like it was their fault. And she's like, the couple like that, who was responsible for containing the energy at that point in time, or yeah, like controlling the energy at that point in time. And she was like, no, it absolutely is their responsibility. Like, they were leading the space and they were not holding that space properly, and this happened and it was not okay. And I'm like, no, you're right. Like, they should take full responsibility for this. I mean, everyone, the person who put on the event, there's no closed container. They do an opening ceremony, but it's not a safe space. And the people who, yeah, kind of allowed that to happen and then kind of brushed it under the rug and called it a Kundalini awakening. So yeah, I kind of took some reflection from that person as well. But anyway, this is just an example of, she's not a vampire at her core, but she has vampiric qualities and vampiric attachments. And it was just like a really good example of what they do, where they just like, it just, yeah, just taking advantage. And like courting into other people's wombs. I mean, that's when I got out of there. I'm like, you're not touching me. I can feel you trying to come near me. And I felt bad leaving in the middle, but yeah, I booked it out of there. So, also, can't tell you how many Akashic readers I've come across that are vampires. And remember, like, we know that not everyone at any point in time has access to the Akashic. You have to have good intention. You have to be of the light and have to have gone through a certain level of initiation of soul evolution to be granted access. There's, I believe, a possibility for everyone to get to that point and be granted access to the Akashic if they want to go down that path. But not everyone, like, if you give 6 billion people on this planet the prayer to open the Akashic, not all 6 billion people are going to be able to do it. But there will come a point in time where all 6 billion will be able to, depending on if they choose to do the work. So I think that's very much not understood in the Akashic community. Um, and so if you are an underworld soul who is parasitic, who wants to use this information to their own benefit, who's working with negative magic, who embodies greed, like, the lords of the records are not welcoming you. But the problem is people think that they're in the real records because they're not that in tune and evolved in their gifts. They think they said the prayer and now they're channeling something, but it's not the Akashic. It's not God. It's likely an entity or somewhere in the fourth dimension is where they are. That's why a lot of people also, those fear timelines that we were seeing a lot in 2020 and also recently as well, where I'm seeing all of these people channeling. I'm like, what's the point of sharing this distorted, dark potential timeline that doesn't even resonate for me? It's like they just want to keep invoking fear. So what is it if it's not the Akashic realm? It's an inverted Akashic realm. How do I know this? I know some of you guys know this story already, but because I came face to face, allegedly, with the group of people responsible for it, who have been stealing, duplicating, and replicating information from the Akasha, from the halls of Alexandria, from libraries over many civilizations, and imprinting it and downloading it into this false Akashic or inverted field. That is essentially an inaccurate copy of the original. Some of it's accurate, some of it's not, which makes all of it inaccurate in my eyes. So the group, the cult that I escaped, they were all Akashic readers, right? And my question as soon as I left that house was, why are you giving them access to the Akashic? I don't understand. Look at what they're doing. Like, why are you, it's like you're fueling the fire by providing this information, like providing them with this incredible tool that is sacred. And they're like, we don't. It's a copy that they created. And then I went in to see, like, one of the women in the group lived in Egypt for many years. They take all of these Akashic students. Now they have access. They timestamp everything and they upload it into this false Akashic to keep the information as accurate and updated as possible. It's a whole thing. If you guys do want to know the full story, like, I'm leaving out a lot of details. I will include it in the episode where I do account detail for detail of what happened in that home back on 8/8, because I know that's coming. I'm just still gaining the strength and the courage to do that. So if you want to know more about this, let me know and I'm happy to talk about it in that episode. So the thing that I've noticed with a lot of Akashic readers that people have shown me that I've kind of come across, I'm like, they're not in the Akashic and they're vampires. It's like such a theme, like a parallel, a connection. It's very interesting. So again, they are lower dimensional underworld beings. And yeah, I guess when I say vampire, I would define it as this underworld consciousness groups that is closely connected to Satan and the Antichrist living down there with Satan. Obviously, the grays are still connected to that type of energy, the Antichrist, but more light, farther away, a little bit different, right? So, like I said, I see them as energy. It's black, it moves. Sometimes I'll see those red, beady eyes, sometimes almost piercing like a laser. I feel that bats are connected to them as well. They maybe shapeshift as bats, or they use bats as their like minions. To identify them, yeah, they kind of look like a demon would look, but it's a different frequency. So, like I said earlier, I can see an entity that is just a black mass, and it's like, well, what now? Like, what is it? Right. And that's where the other senses come in, where a lot of people are like, oh, I wish I could see. I wish I could see. And it's like, well, there's always another step to the sight, right? Obviously, if we see a reptilian, we know it's a reptile. But when we're seeing a black mass, a black energy, we also need to tune into, for me, it's my feeling and my inner knowing, and my ability to read frequencies. So I'm able to identify because I know the frequency of a vampire and I pick up on it when it's right in front of me. And the same goes for any being, like whether it's Arcturian or a gray or whatever. So whether they're a non-physical being or human, maybe you see the black mass or black in their aura, or you can feel their hunger, their greed. You can feel them trying to like connect to you, or yeah, like feed off of you. If they're trying to sell you and sell you and sell you their services on social media, that's vampire. Like, pretty, I don't want to say 100% it's vampire, but most likely, yeah. You might also see the color red, not just in the eyes, but the color red could also show that the vampire consciousness is around. Sometimes fangs, like these parasitic teeth. But honestly, just ask your soul, your body, your team, like, is this a vampire? Or does this person have vampiric attachments? And get that yes or no. And trust what you hear, because, or if you can't hear the answer or feel confused or doubt, this is your sign you need a clearing. And this is your sign. The answer is probably yes, because they're trying to confuse you. So whether or not you get a yes, but then there's doubt, or you can't even get that yes or no, I would say that 99% probability the answer is yes. I would definitely describe them as soulless. Obviously, they have a soul, but barely, in my opinion. It's just like this emptiness, hollowness, greed. It's never enough, never enough. And when I look at the consciousness as a whole, it is a very dark mass. There's barely any light. It's like a black hole. It's just like a sinking feeling. Some siphon off creative energy, sexual energy, the mind, trauma, pain, emotions, right? They siphon off your emotions. So they want to keep you in these cycles of emotions. So you're not actually purging them and clearing them and alchemizing, for example, the pain back into love, because why would they want that? Because they're feeding off of these emotions. So they keep you in this cycle. And I have a client who, I can't remember if this was a vampire entity, but it's a really good example. So we're in the light process, and she basically was saying, like, I have this pattern. I procrastinate. I wait until the last minute to do everything or some things. I don't understand where this is coming from. I want to look into it. So what I found was an entity attachment that was manipulating her to procrastinate, because it was feeding off of the energy that came with that. So these continuous thoughts of, I need to get this done, the rush of anxiety, fear, worry that happens in those moments. And most importantly, though, what it really wanted was the adrenaline that came along with doing the thing at the final hour, which is gnarly, pretty gnarly, even just like recounting it, right? So any entity feeding off of you, whether vampire consciousness or not, will always manipulate you to get what they want. And that's a really good example of that. Um, Yeah. So, human vampires. I'm just going to kind of list off some qualities, I guess, that I would that I kind of see when I'm dealing with these groups. And maybe now you're realizing, like, oh, there are a couple people in my life that are checking the box on most of these, and I do feel drained when I'm around them, and maybe there's something more to look at here. So using someone else's energy to get the things they want for themselves, don't want to put forth their own energy to do something, so they manipulate another to do it for them, usually starting a lot of drama, always in crisis mode because that re-energizes them, getting mad at you for not doing what they want. Example, upholding boundaries, narcissistic behaviors, constantly talking, chatting, like almost like distracting you, or yeah, needing it to be all about them. Victims, tantrums when losing control, a constant need for reassurance or attention. They take things very personally. They they make you feel bad about yourself. Like they talk down to you. They're critical, poking at your self-esteem, your confidence. They can be very condescending, critical, belittling, intimidating, trying to make you feel unsafe, guilt tripping. So obviously this also can all fall under like reptilian as well, because they are pros at trying to belittle and intimidate you. So it's really just discernment of, you know, vampire versus another group, another antichrist group. So they do seek out people with a lot of light, and they attach and feed and kind of manipulate you to, stay connected to them. Symptoms can also include physical illness that can develop from something like this, from an attachment like this, because it's like you don't have enough of your own life force energy to sustain your physical body. They also do black magic, this group. They definitely are quite skilled in black magic, so sometimes they are using and manipulating energy that way to kind of keep you in this state of illness, exhaustion, confusion, irritability, and so on. So again, these people, whether human or not, there's a void of emptiness and pain. They are disconnected from source themselves and are looking to access that energy somewhere because they need it. And, we've all been there, right? So again, we don't want to blame or look down on this group necessarily. It's okay to be frustrated and be irritated and angry at them, because I just feel like what they're doing is not okay, but it's also teaching us a lesson in our own sovereignty and helping us return to that state. So thank you. But we've seen how humans react during times of crisis and need, right? Like sometimes all morals go out the window to get what you need to survive. And that's just what's happening here. So, yeah, I don't really feel like they have much empathy or compassion. And I feel also like people need to take energy siphoners, vampires more seriously. I don't think people understand like the severity of how it can affect you, your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. And if it's hard to do that, if it's hard to even look at it and accept it, it's even more of a reason to cut them off, because it means they're in deep. They're not mutually beneficial relationships. I don't know who needs to hear this. I'm just saying it. You might think that they're not. They're friendly as long as they get what they want. And it's not real. It's not real love. Like this relationship is not rooted in unconditional love, because it is not possible for them to show up in that space with you. And yeah, sure, for all of us, myself included, I've, given my power away, and I've, had my own experiences with this group. And I'm sure that there have been points in time where I have, been the energy vampire, because I'm feeling such a lack within myself that I, need that light from someone else. And we've all been on both sides of the coin. So with that said, I'm going to share an experience that I had with this group. Okay, before I do that, I can't remember what episode I talked about this in, but I was explaining how entity attachments can be found in many different layers of the body and the psyche and the consciousness, right? And maybe it's not so obvious sometimes because we can't necessarily feel it in like the outer layers of the auric field or pick up on it on other people in the outer layers of the energy body. But these parasites, over a very long period of time, have made their way in so deep into us that for many, we don't even realize it because this feeling has just become normalized, right? Or we're going to conventional doctors like me when I had no energy at all and couldn't even do anything. And most of it was coming from these parasitic attachments, these entity attachments. Of course, a conventional doctor, even a alternative medicine doctor, is not going to pick up on this. But it's just like for society, it's become so normalized to feel this way. And in reality, it's not normal at all. So with that said, let me get into this story. So backtracking to Tulum 2022, here we are again in Tulum. And I'm sitting in ceremony next to this girl that I kind of hit it off with. We're still friends today. And she tells me about this friend who is also an Akashic reader and would love everything that I'm about. She is also living in Tulum. She sent her my page. Turns out she already followed me, and that was pretty much it. So I don't really think about it again. 3 months later, there's a situation with a friend. Basically, I don't want to like air out the details, but yeah, something happened with this man, and he's now in a new relationship with, I'm just going to call her Sarah, with Sarah, who's the girl that my friend wanted me to connect with from ceremony. So again, there's a lot to this story with my friend and the man, and now this new girlfriend. There's something like that is tying them together that she has to deal with, and now this girl has to be in her life. I don't even know like how I wound up connecting to Sarah. um I can't remember if we didn't really see each other again in Tulum. She was connected to this man. I'm friends with the other girls, so I'm, kind of staying out of this and I'm not going to get involved. But I feel like when I'm thinking back to it that we were now connected on Instagram, and she wound up doing the light process with me. And she also wound up living in or near Mount Shasta. So I connected her with my mentor because they lived like a couple hours away from each other. So at this point, I saw her beauty. I know she has a lot of gifts. She definitely knew how to code, how to move energy. She was definitely skilled, and she was definitely light, like at her core. And she just also had a lot of trauma and dark attachments, but I definitely saw her light. And I chose to, at this point now, because we're working together and because she's now connected to my community and now I'm living in Mount Shasta, like we're friendly, right? But even despite that, like there was always something in me that I just like couldn't really connect with her like in the way that I thought I would or the way that I wanted to. Like these alarm bells were going off. And I sat with it. Like, is this me? Am I jealous? Is this my own stuff I'm projecting outward? And like, no, it was my intuition warning me not to get too close, that something was not right. So anyway, she talks about her roommate that she lives with, and none of us, like my whole community in Mount Shasta, my ex-mentor, her friends, our friends, like really had any desire to meet this roommate. Like Sarah would come hang out with us, but the roommate was never invited, and she never really asked to invite her. It was just kind of not really talked about, but it was always like, yeah, just kind of like a no. Talked about how amazing she was, talked about reading the Akashic records, but none of us really talked about like the roommate together. It was just kind of this unspoken, like there's no need to bring it up because we all felt it. So one day the roommate came to pick up Sarah, and our friend went outside she was outside or something, said hello, came back in frantic saying that woman is a vampire, someone clear me, basically. And we all kind of acknowledged, like, yeah, that checks, because none of us wanted to even learn more about her, never wanted her to, join us. So we probably all feeling it and just didn't say anything. So we hang out a couple more times while I'm in Shasta. We do some beautiful gridwork mission together on the mountain. And yeah, I think we all were feeling this disconnect with her. Like something just didn't feel genuine. And we did all talk about it. And we said, we think it's that, right? We're the teachers. We're in this role already. We have our businesses. She's really new to this work, less than, right, a year. She hasn't really been able to develop the business. And I think it's, yeah, when you're in this space where you're kind of with all of these, I was definitely the youngest, but everyone else was a lot older, like 10 plus years older than me, and have been doing this work even a lot longer than me. And I always looked at them too as like not the elders, but kind of not my ex mentor, because she was kind of all over the place. But she had this one friend who I really did look up to and listen to everything that she said. So I understand kind of being in that place where you're like, you want to put on a good presentation of yourself, but because you're trying to be something, it's coming off as inauthentic, and we're all picking up on that. And it's like we knew about her inner child stuff and family stuff and trauma stuff as well, so we kind of just thought like maybe this is an insecurity of not seeing herself as good enough to be sitting at the table with us, which to me, I understand it, but I personally don't feel like I ever create that environment. I feel like I have a lot of friends where it kind of borders the healer client relationship, and when we're not in session, we're equal. I mean, we're equal in session too, because I'm just helping you. Like it doesn't like mean I'm better or worse, or you're better or worse. Like that other person has skills that I don't have, that I could come to them for. Like it's just not how I look at things. But I definitely get, me being like one of 8 other women who are all successful for the most part, and now you're kind of stepping into this community and you feel less than, or you feel like you're not there yet. And I totally get it. And so, yeah, we just kind of chalked it up to that. So now fast forward to July. This is this is a month before 8/8, a month before I went on this retreat. I'm reconnecting with my ex mentor after 2 months of not speaking. We get on the phone. I'm thinking we're going to talk through our stuff. We're going to catch up. Everything's okay. Basically, for an hour and a half, we're on Zoom, and she's telling me about how Sarah was basically cut out of the community over the weekend because she was helping with a retreat and her behavior was unacceptable, and just going on and on and on and on and on, which is the MO of my ex mentor. Drama, everyone's always out to get her. There's always a problem with someone, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. But like we get off the call, I'm drained. I'm like, she didn't even ask me anything about myself. She just complained about Sarah the whole time. And um we didn't really resolve anything. Like I don't feel closer to her. But anyway, it's not that I doubted what she saw. I mean, she did tell me, she did recount what happened on the retreat, and I would have done the same thing. I would have said, hey, this isn't gonna work out going forward anymore. So like I would have literally done the same thing based off the story she told me. Then a week later, I'm feeling so heavy. Um and I just know that I need to do some clearing. So I basically went out to the mountains on Saturday. I did almost a 10-mile hike. I sat in nature all day, and I was just purging and clearing and clearing and clearing for like 8 hours. And so I remember I'm walking at this point, and I'm starting to feel this jealousy, just this icky energy. and like insecurity and anger, but a lot of jealousy. And it's coming up. And I'm like, what is this? And I see her face. It was her energy, her jealousy, all this projection toward me. And I was just like, what did I do to you? This is not okay. So it took me about 45 minutes to clear. And at that point, I'm realizing I've got to block her. Like, we can't be friends. You don't come back from something like this. Like, really tell me how you really feel. And I can't remember like the details, but I told her, because I felt like I owed an explanation of like why I'm, gonna block you. And something told me to talk to her. So in that time, I start ketamine therapy. And for 2 years, I am so against ketamine. I always feel weird being around it. I don't know why I had that in my head. And yeah, declined it literally for 2 years straight. Then I meet this guy, a friend of ours, and he tells me he just finished ketamine therapy. It changed his life. The next day, I'm at a show and I'm very in my head. It was Dead Rocks, which should have been a fantastic night, but I was just so in my head, so insecure, hypercritical of all of my movements, like the way I was interacting with people, like just not how I normally operate. And later that night, my friend, she was like, ketamine is one of like the best things I've ever done for myself. I'm like, you're the second person to say this to me this weekend. I was like, let me try it. So I try it, and all of those fears, those anxieties, those harsh voices that I just could not stop hearing all night, went away. And I was just at peace in my mind. And I was like, oh, this is medicine. And I have a future with this medicine. And I wound up signing up for 12 ketamine treatments, done like with a a doctor, not just like on my own. Like, this was a proper ketamine therapy that I signed up for. And that night at Zed's Dead, I'm clearing this. So basically, I still wasn't getting my period. And I'm being shown, and this was a couple days before that, I signed a contract with these vampiric beings that they have control over my womb, because they basically, I know this is really gruesome, but this is what I got. It's like they kept killing my children. So I gave them like control and access of my womb for them to stop killing my children. So I was like reversing that at this show, all in my head. Just, it was a lot. So then I start the treatment about 10 days later. And one of my angel numbers is 717, or any combination of sevens and ones. It was a new angel number for me at that time. But I start treatment at on 717 at 717. Like, it was kind of crazy because the session started at 7, and by the time I actually like took the thing and was going into the journey, it was 717. And in this journey, I am basically holding a red balloon. I'm like a little girl holding a red balloon, just floating in this gray matter, this icky, sticky, dense gray matter. And I'm floating in it, floating in it, floating in it. And all of a sudden, I'm like, can I just open a portal? Like, this is taking too long. Where am I? Where am I going? And they're like, you can't open a portal here. There's only one way out. So I'm just watching myself travel. This probably went on for 30 minutes. Then there's this vortex at the bottom right corner of this vision that I'm having, and it kind of looks like a tornado, and I I get sucked into it and spit out. And that was the journey. And now I'm coming out of it and I'm like, what was that? And I'm realizing that, yeah, I couldn't open a portal. I couldn't do anything. There was only one way out, and it was through this weird, spinny, freaky thing that spit me out into another dimension. And they said that this Or sorry, I didn't know what it was. The journey just ended, and that was that. Okay. Then I go to Global Dance Festival later. I think this was Monday. I'm pretty sure it was the following Saturday now. I had the conversation with Sarah. I tell her, because I felt like it wasn't her fault. Like, I never felt like it was malicious, but I just wanted her to know, like, hey, this debilitated me. Like, I felt this, it was affecting me. I hope you didn't mean it, but like you should know. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I like can't remember entirely, but for some reason I didn't just block her and that was it. Like we did talk. And so we talked the night before, like Friday. Now it's Saturday. I'm at Global Dance. Or maybe it was we talked Thursday, now it's Friday at Global Dance. I can't remember. Either way, it doesn't matter. But I'm in the crowd and I look at my phone and I see a message from her. And in the conversation we had the day before, like she was saying like, I think my roommate is a vampire, like I'm starting to see it, blah blah blah. And I was just like, okay, like she's seeing it, my job is done, like, that's it. Then she texts me asking if I can confirm something about the roommate, because the day before I wasn't like, yeah, she is, it's like you didn't ask for that. So now I tune in that moment where I'm at the show and I now get sent into this whole insane journey. And I was being shown that my friend is light, that I was correct, but she was basically like captured and taken by the vampires. And her inner child, this part of her that we felt, right, when she's around us, this aspect of her consciousness that she's also very well aware of all of this, was screaming, begging for help, being tortured by this group. And I'm just in disbelief at this point. And this is just even the start of it. So then I'm shown that gray matter that I was traveling through for 30 minutes was a block in my own consciousness that the vampires created, so I would never find them on the other side of that wall. And that I needed to do plant medicine. I'm just going to call it plant medicine. You can have, your own belief about ketamine. It's really helped me clear distorted, fourth dimensional, weird stuff. And again, if you guys do want it, because I did do 12 treatments. So if you want to hear more, I'd have more crazy stories like this. But yeah, and that's why it was like, just the chain of events just unfolded so perfectly to where um it's like friends tell me, kind of get me to try the ketamine, and then my first journey falls on 717. I've been seeing those angel numbers for forever, and I'm clearing this block that allows me to actually see all of this clearly. So I was told that Sarah, all of her healings, the readings she does, they're compromised, that every client of hers is being siphoned from through those entities that are connected to her. It wasn't always this way, especially as she started. I didn't know this at the time, but like she was once in the real Akashic. She no longer is, because she was now a student under my ex mentor, right? And her group of Akashic readers. So, because yeah, I just remember all I don't remember. Obviously, it wasn't the time yet for me to see that. I didn't know that. But all I got was she it wasn't always this way. Like her healings were not always compromised, but now they are. And this is also why she has these feelings inside, this pain. This is the root of it. At one point in time, around the time of Egypt, I offered a hand and I lent her support and I offered to help her, because she was suffering. And she basically, the way it was described to me, was just took advantage of that and kept taking and taking and taking more than what I offered. And she did it without me knowing. That's a vampire. So again, whether or not it is her or it's an attachment of hers, she does have this responsibility. But now I'm getting this part of me back. And when I tell you, never in my life have I felt something like this as intensely. There was once in an ayahuasca ceremony where I felt parts of my body like kind of waking up for the first time ever. It was very brief. Dial that up to 1 million, because that is what I felt in that moment, as her energy was being pulled up from the left side of my body, like my head into my neck, into my back. Like I was feeling parts of my body for the first time in my life. If you can only imagine what that feels like. And I watched and felt this black energy leave my system, and these parts of me woke up. I was in shock at how deep she was, how much she took. And again, it's the situation she got herself into, but you have to take responsibility. Like, to me, there is no separation between you and the vampire, because at this point, like, it's gotten to this. And I get it. Like, I've been there too, where you are unaware and you don't know and you don't mean to be doing it, but she knows. She knows now. And that's the agreement of this contract that I had with her, that it is complete once I tell her. The agreement that our souls made so that I could have my body back and my sovereignty back, and she can get herself out of this, is for me to tell her the truth of all of this, the root of where all of this is coming from. And that, yeah, she's basically trapped by vampires and needs to retrieve her soul. I was told the fastest timeline for her was 2 months dieta, like 30 or 60 ayahuasca ceremonies. They advise she does not go through with hosting her retreat, as it's going to harm people, and to pause her sessions until she returns if she decides to take this route of plant medicine. She still held the retreat. She's still taking sessions to this day. She's still reading the Akashic records. She knows about, what happened a month later. But I don't think anything else has changed. Yeah, she's hurting people. What am I supposed to do? I held up my end of the deal, which I feel never really should have been a deal to begin with. But I gave her something in return, I guess, or instead of my energy. But yeah, I mean, you know, I allowed it. I offered to help. It was just a lot more than what I originally offered to give. So anyway, be careful out there. It could look really great on the outside, but on the inside, it's a completely different story. And sometimes it is just a little gut feeling that's trying to tell you something. And in this case, it wound up being a really big thing. But I didn't see all of this at first. I just felt this, I don't know, kind of keep some distance, right? And if I didn't listen to my intuition, if I didn't listen to that message, I might not have been able to clear it and been able to see it, or at least in the timeline that I did, which was extremely important, because little did I know I was heading into the 8/8 debacle. That's what you want to call it. So one more vampiric connection that I have is in my lineage. That's been a very interesting path to go down. I've cleared hundreds of thousands of them through my lineage. I've cleared a lot of black magic that's been done by them. It's also very easy to differentiate their forms of black magic. I don't feel like some of it's strong. Some of it's really not. Some of it is strong, but I feel like for the most part, I would say it's not that strong compared to other types that I've seen. And yeah, some of them do marry into families and suck the life force dry of the lineage like a curse. And then the lineage is suppressed and depressed. And there's all these things going on that, yeah, are traced back to a vampire basically marrying into the family. So yeah, they can be attached to the lineage, family members, anyone and everyone. Obviously not everyone, but you know what I'm trying to say. It can kind of come up in a lot of different ways. So sometimes it's very obvious to identify it. You can feel it immediately when walking into a room. Other times it's very hidden, like my friend Sarah, where you might not catch it just by looking at it. And great time for this reminder, like I said last episode, if something is off, if something feels off, it is. And it's okay if you don't know why or what that is in the moment. Just trust your gut, listen. The truth will come out, and it will come out exactly when it's supposed to. If I had seen that with Sarah in the beginning, I probably would not have introduced her to my community. I would not have done the light process with her. I wouldn't have brought her closer into my world, but she needed to come closer into my world because this is how everything was to unfold with this community, with her being a part of it, and these attachments and all of that, right? So the truth will come out exactly when it's supposed to. If you're not getting the clarity now, but it's just a no in your body, listen to that no. I'm glad I continue to have my guard up. It was protecting me from her inching even deeper into me. So I just want to share a couple of like celebrities that have these vampiric attachments. You can kind of get a feel for it, and then can go apply it to the healers, the people you follow, the people in your life, things like that. Um, all alleged and for entertainment purposes only. But obviously, Taylor Swift, she is a vampire. I feel like Megan Fox. I feel like Machine Gun Kelly is under attack by this group. Like he is not at his core, but he definitely is embodying and embracing it and kind of trying to romanticize it as well. Teal Swan has a lot of vampiric energy, as does Travis Scott, who, by the way, when I was thinking about this the other day and I was like, okay, what are some celebrities? And he popped into my head. I'm like, ugh, which I never really thought of before. I was like, what does he even look like again? Because we know, if you know Astro World, right? I think it was 2021. I'm not sure actually, but his concert, that was a ritual. There was a sacrifice. People passed away, right? It's like, I saw that, I saw what I needed to see there. But I look at his photos on Google and I'm just hit with this wave of bad energy. It hit me right in the face. It was just like almost consuming me in a way. And I was like, I gotta exit out of this. I can't even see this. And that's how I feel as well with certain politicians and, others in Hollywood, where it's like I can't even look at a photo of them. And it's the same for other healers and other Akashic readers and people in the spiritual space, right? These like darker beings who are creating this illusion. So yeah, sometimes I have a really insane reaction and it just is. And it's also, I would rather that than being blissfully unaware. So anyway, that's that. Let's hope that this video processes. I am not going to touch a thing. And yeah, this episode will be out obviously tomorrow. You guys already know that. So again, group psychic surgery for vampire energies. If you resonated with this, if it's hitting, please consider joining us. It's the 30th at 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time. There are spaces still available. I will link that in the show notes. And have a beautiful and safe Halloween. If I don't connect with you guys before, I will definitely be sharing another episode on my thoughts on the two presidential candidates. I have come to a decision, a conclusion of what I'm seeing with these two different people, and I feel I need to share it. So there might be a bonus episode next week, if not 2 weeks from now, and that will be the topic. All right, for now, if you want to book a session, a psychic surgery, a reading, if you want to understand these energies a little bit better, laurenonearth.com, and then Lauren on Earth on Instagram and TikTok. I know it's cringe, but I'm trying to get on TikTok. I will be answering questions. So anyone who has questions for me, and put it in the comments. And then I'm kind of picking those questions and then making a new TikTok answering those questions. And I will also be sharing experiences that I have in sessions with clients, because I think that's really interesting as well as, yeah, the rabbit hole that, you know, we're all kind of going down in our own way. So if you can deal with the cringe as I get comfortable on TikTok, please give me a follow. I'd really appreciate it. And that's about it. See you guys next time. Bye.